Hi everybody, welcome back. I think we are live. I'm just waiting for confirmation on my screen, but welcome back. I'm going to try again to give some classes on Facebook Live directly, and hopefully the connection is better. We have a change with the Wi-Fi, so hopefully everything is good. And yes, I think we are connected. So just to double check, I'm going to make it bigger, and hopefully you can see that we are live. So I think everything is working. Fingers crossed we are okay. So on the left, I'm just going to begin really with an article in relation to Brazil and in relation to Rio de Janeiro. And it's just a typical article from National Geographic. So the vocabulary is very advanced and very, very difficult. Um, so again, hopefully everything will be okay, and hopefully I can continue giving a few short lessons on Facebook Live as well, because I think it's very useful for everybody. But of course, the connection is the most important. So fingers crossed that the connection has improved since the last time. So here you can see a picture of Rio de Janeiro, and we'll just focus on some of the vocabulary. So the title under the headline or under the picture is Locals Play Soccer on one of Rio de Janeiro's famed beaches. So the first significance is the beach, which in Spanish is playa, and the preposition we say is on the beach. Okay, maybe you can say in the beach, but more typical it is on the beach. Okay, so it's very, very typical in English, the preposition on the beach. And as I said, in the beach is maybe possible and understandable, but it's not number one. Number one would be on the beach. Okay, again, it is possible at the beach, and at is just specific location. So I'll meet you at the beach. You meet your friend at the beach, and it's just a little difference between the three. But number one, it's probably on the beach. Okay, and again, the adjective here is famed, which is probably exactly the same as famous. So famed and famous in this situation, I think, would be almost identical. So there's no real big difference between the two. Okay, so I'll just make my notes here so you can see it. So we'll begin, and I'll just try the key vocabulary and the most important vocabulary from the text. Okay, so I'll try to use the highlighter and to use the colors to try and show you the most important vocabulary. Okay, so basically the title is Everything to Know About Rio de Janeiro, and here's how to plan. This is important because some people make this error, and in Spanish I think it's planificar, but in English it's always to plan. And we can say to make a plan as well, which is typical structure. And we have a few expressions. Everything goes according to plan is very typical as well. So there's really good vocabulary and interesting structures that we use. So we'll just check the first paragraph to test the difficult vocabulary. And again, I'm going to identify basically the most important structures here with my pen. So Brazilians is important because the person is from Brazil, the country, but the nationality is Brazilian, and the person is a Brazilian. Okay, it's the same with other countries. You have maybe Spanish is the nationality, Spain is the country, and it's possible to say a Spaniard in English as well. Okay, so there's some interesting structures, and I suppose a Spaniard is the most unusual word we have. So the person from Spain is considered a Spaniard, the person from Brazil is considered a Brazilian, and that's more or less the important detail. And of course, in other countries, it's the same as well. Okay, so I'll just continue again, and that's very important. Elsewhere means different location. So I don't want to go to this city, I want to go elsewhere. So elsewhere means a different location. And again, the verb to complain is very, very important. So when you are not happy and you go to the restaurant and the food is not good, you want to complain. Okay, and the typical expression is how are you, and everybody says I cannot complain because everything is good, you are happy and there's no problem, so you cannot complain. Also the substantivo is important because the T is the noun. Okay, so a complaint is the typical um, substantiva or the noun, but the verb is to complain. Okay, so there's a very big difference between the verb and the noun. So the T is the big, big difference. Okay, so that's very important. Also, in the restaurant, you make a complaint. So it's typical with the verb to make. Okay, so again, the difference between to make and to do is important. So in relation to a complaint, it's always to make a complaint. Okay, an outsider is a person from a different country. So maybe even friends, you have a group, and the outsider is a person who's on the outside of the group and is in this situation, it's in relation to the country. The outsider is like a foreigner as well. It's maybe a more polite way to say foreigner, and the pronunciation is difficult. Foreigner, the G is silent. Okay, the adjective is foreign, and the person is a foreigner, I suppose, is the substantivo or the noun. Okay, also you can say Japanese, or maybe the language. For example, the Japanese language is foreign to me, and the significance is it's very unusual and it's very different and it's very new for you. So if something is foreign for you, it means it's very strange and very new and very unusual. So that's a typical expression as well. Here we have the apostrophe. So this is a very interesting rule for the apostrophe. Normally with possession, we would say the apostrophe, for example, Brian's pen, but when it's plural, so in this case it's plural here, and outsiders is plural, so when the word ends in S, plural, and it's possession, we use the apostrophe to represent the structure of the possession. Okay, so outsiders, maybe car. So that means probably the cars that are possession to the outsiders in the plural. So that's a little rule. Because it's plural, we put the apostrophe after the S. Okay. The view of the country, yes, you can have a view of the country, which can mean your physical or your what you see. It's your view, okay, but also it's your opinion. So what is your view about this topic? What is your view about the country? It means your opinion, not necessarily your view or your sight. Okay, so that's very typical as well. What is your view on the topic? And that means basically what is your opinion um, about the topic. Okay, so that's a very interesting structure and very important difference between a view and in relation to opinion, and in relation to maybe your physical sight or your physical view, vista, I think in Spanish. Okay. So again, I will just try to, again, based on is very important. That's the preposition based on. Here we have the hyphen, 1, 2, 3 hyphens, which is incredible. So this hyphen is very, very important. And also I want to explain image is important for pronunciation, because in Spanish it's typical imagen, but in English it's the image, and the verb in English is to imagine. Okay, so very, very important pronunciation for this word in particular, because it's a common confusion. Okay, accurate, but Rio is also a city on is the typical preposition we use for the edge. Okay, so the edge, I think la borde in Espanol, for example, the table, we have the edge of the table. My seat, I have the edge of my seat. But we have an expression, if you are on the edge of your seat, the significance is you're very, very excited and you're very entertained. So, for example, the football match is very exciting and you're on the edge of your seat because it's really exciting. So, the football match is exciting, but you are excited. So, you're on the edge of your seat. Okay. But to live on the edge of town is possible as well. And that could be literal. Okay. So, to live on the edge of town, that means basically outside, very similar to outskirts, maybe similar to suburbs, but not exactly. But also to be on the edge of the group, the edge of society is a little negative. Maybe the homeless people or disadvantaged people or people who are discriminated against are on the edge of society. So it is very, very important. It is a verb as well, to edge forward. It means to move forward very, very slowly. Okay, so to edge forward is to move forward very, very slowly. Okay, also an edgy person is very similar to maybe a nervous or excited person. Okay, so nervous or excited person is a very edgy person, somebody who's not calm, who's maybe also restless. Okay, but maybe restless is that you cannot stay in the one location, you have to move but edgy is maybe more mentality. It's a bit more negative, I suppose, a bit more nervous. Okay, so that's really interesting. So the word edge is very, very important in English, and here they literally live on the edge, but also, if metaphorically, to live life on the edge means that you are always looking for something exciting, that you like to do some adrenaline sport. So you live life on the edge, and the significance is you constantly are doing something, and you constantly are looking for something exciting to do. Okay, so to live life on the edge is a very famous expression. And again, edges, it's riches. So this is the possession, and it's related to the countries or Rio. So the possession, the richest people that are the possession of Rio live on the edge of iconic beaches, and its is again its possession, my pen, your pen, but Rio, its richest people and its poorest people live on the edge of the richest in vertical favelas, okay, comunidades. And because of, that's a typical combination, because of rising crime rate. So the rate of crime is rising, increasing. And again, remember the difference between to raise and to rise. So normally the temperature, the price, and the sun rises, but raise, I raise my hand, I raise a question, I raise an objection. So there is a big difference between to rise and to raise. And in this situation, it's the rates of crime to rise and to raise. Okay, so very, very important difference between the two. And I'll just continue again with a little bit more. Again, lives on the edge is related to looking for excitement. So if you live on the edge, you're looking for excitement, and you're very, very seeking adrenaline, okay, and fear of violence as well. So very important paragraph, not too difficult, but also in relation to fear. Fear is the noun, okay, and the adjective is afraid. So typically with the adjective, we need the verb to be. Okay, so to be afraid is the typical structure. Because it's the adjective, we need the verb to be. Okay, and because it's the noun, we need the verb to have. Okay, so you have fear, but you are afraid, and it is to a possible verb as well, to fear. For example, I fear spiders. It's possible I am afraid of spiders, and also you can say spiders scare me. Okay, because there is another verb to scare, and we also have another verb to frighten. So these words and this list is important in particular. So, for example, spiders frighten me. Okay, and the adjective as well is frightened. So you need to be very clear and very sure with all this detail, because a lot of people are very curious and make a lot of mistakes, particularly in relation to these particular words. Okay, and just to let me check that we're still live. I have no idea if this is working, but I hope we are working. I'm just going to check if there's any comments or any messages. No, I just have to hope and fingers crossed everything is working okay. And again, I could just return to the article. So hopefully everything is okay, and we'll continue. So they're the most important vocabulary from the first paragraph. So let's continue to the second paragraph. And the question is when? When is the best time to go to Rio de Janeiro? I have no idea, of course, but here they say the high season, which is very similar to the peak season. Okay, so it is a typical expression. It is high season at the moment, and that means it is the peak season. Okay, but also it's a bit more advanced. But there's another expression in relation to this. It is high season on me, for example, and that means, or on him, and that means everybody wants to criticize, everybody wants to comment freely about this person. That's a very advanced structure. It's high season on him or high season on her. Um, so that's very, very important as well. High season is the southern summer, more precisely Christmas to Ash Wednesday. And ash is typical when you burn the wood or you burn something. You have the ash, and the ash is the material the very soft material like dust, very, very similar to dust. And we have an expression, we say from ashes to ashes. And this is a metaphor that we start as nothing. The body almost starts as nothing. And then when we die, we return to the same content. So from ashes to ashes, okay? But Ash Wednesday is a specific day in Easter that is when you receive the ash on your forehead, maybe. So the forehead is this part of the body, okay? And AKA is a bit important as well. AKA has the significance also known as, okay? So I'll just highlight the key vocabulary in this part.